who you are is what we want, is actually interesting. When people's bullshit all drops away and it's just like, no, just be and just do what's in front of you. Right? And then suddenly there's like this incredible life that's going on. You know, we see these people and it's fascinating, but it only comes from letting it all go, from no longer needing to be interesting, no longer needing to be more than what you are.
This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte.
Identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles
so that you can claim your own path
and make your life a work of art.
And we're rolling. We're rolling on another podcast. We've got a really great one, I think, for you on this one. This is Be Nothing and Do Something. And this is something that is has a lot of very deep personal meaning for me. It's come out of a realization that I had recently for myself. So just to give you the listener an idea of a lot of what's been going on for me, you know, I'm teaching acting classes, I'm doing a play, doing a podcast, you know, doing these and I do writing stuff as well, like posting blogs and this is all stuff that I love to do. And I was in a place where all of it felt so heavy. And I wasn't really enjoying a lot of the things that I was doing. Maybe momentarily, but then it was just, I would slipping back into this place of just this heaviness and anxiety around all of it. And that put me into the space of, well, what am I doing? If I don't really enjoy doing this, I'm not really feeling motivated to do this, then what the hell am I going to do? And, you know, there's this crazy spiral of the mind that can happen. And as I was going into it and exploring, it's like, well, what the hell is going on with me, right? And I was sitting in a meditation and I was just looking at it, and I realized that everything, all of these things that I just said that I was doing, all of those things were coming with this sort of subconscious thing underneath the surface that everything that I was doing had to be something. It had to have some sort of big impact, you know. So it was this attachment of it being something, but also of me being something, of me being someone. And this whole notion of you've got to be somebody, you know, and you've got to be something. And that whole construct, which is a heavy layer of conditioning that we have in our society, that was making everything impossible to do. There was like, and it made complete sense the moment that it struck me, because I mean, when everything has to be something, when everything has to have some sort of, you know, massive effect, then you're guessing, you're second guessing yourself all the time. Not even second guessing, triple guessing, you know, quadruple guessing everything that you're doing. And there's just no freedom, there's no play left in, and I'm talking about things that I'm like, what the hell? Like, I love doing these things. What's wrong? You know, this is how, what I was realizing was how incredibly destructive this whole notion of being someone can have in our lives, because it was just sucking the joy out of things that are joyful things for me. So I'm throwing that all out there right off the top, because I'm like, this is what's going on, you know, for me. This is what has been recent and relevant, and I thought it would be a really cool thing for us to talk about.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good way to like lay it out there and tell everybody what the hell we're talking about, because
this title isn't necessarily one of those ones where you would know what we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's been a really big thing, although I didn't really realize it until you brought it up. But my idea of who I think I am and where I need to get and what everything needs to mean, it plays a big part in my life. And, you know, it's sneaky. You don't really realize it's happening a lot of the time. I think for me right now, one of the challenges that I'm facing is, I mean, I've been in the film industry for about 20 years now. I've been this filmmaker, actor, screenwriter, and, you know, made somewhat of a career out of this. And I don't really want to do it that much right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird for me because my whole life has been about, well, as much as my independent creative life has been, it's been about filmmaking, you know, it's been about acting and screenwriting. And to not really want to do it is not really giving me as much of a creative outlet because I don't really feel so much like making a movie right now or writing another script, or I don't even care about being on a television show or acting in anything. Like honestly, if I booked a role right now, I would care less. It wouldn't matter to me, which is a weird thing. And something that I've been realizing is I have this interest and curiosity in video game development, but I don't know how to program. I don't know how to do half the shit that you got to do, or a quarter of it. And so it's one of those things where if I took it on, I mean, it would need to be out of a hobby. It would need to be out of just pure interest.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, in the near and distant future, I don't know. Near or distant future, I don't know, like, whether I would make money from it or if it would get me anywhere, if it would do anything for me.
Yeah.
Or if it'll just be like something I'll venture down and then decide I don't want to go that way. But yeah, it's like immediately when I was like, oh, there's this video game course I could take in the local college that's like near my place. And then immediately I was like, yeah, but I need to make money. I need to forward my career. I need to do all this stuff. I need to be this guy. And what about all these other things that I, you know, need to do? Yeah. And, it, you know, when I started filmmaking, I didn't start filmmaking to be like some big filmmaker. I actually just made a film because I thought it would be fun. And it was. And then I decided to make a career out of it after that because it was fun. Video games could be the same thing for me. Or maybe not. But I think if I don't go into it because it's fun, I think I'll shoot myself in the foot before I even get started. Before I even take the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where it's something, you know, like I'm sharing my experience of, you know, this is what I came to the realization of, you know, because, you know, and I was able to pretty much test it right away because the moment I went and began, you know, doing one of these things, is acting or writing or whatever, and I started to feel this sort of anxiety come up, I could tell myself, hey, just be nothing. And suddenly it was like, oh, that now I can do it, and I could do it and I could enjoy it and have fun doing it. So it's like that. But there are times when, you know, sometimes something doesn't feel right, and it's not necessarily just because we're putting something on it, but it can be because, yeah, there's a different direction that, you know, some part of us wants to go. Some part of us that's still a mystery to us wants to go into.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we did a great talk on curiosity. And curiosity is just such an amazing and extraordinary thing that we have at our disposal, you know, when we choose to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, says, because curiosity says, go explore that, see what's there, right? And whatever's next will be next, right? But you have to actually go down that route. But part of the thing that comes with curiosity, though, is attention, right? And so even for my own circumstance, I try to take the approach of being curious, just like, okay, well, what is this feeling? What is this about? Trying to just really pay attention, which is why I love meditation, right? It's like I can just try and sit and be still and just quiet myself as much as possible and just give my attention to what's going on internally. Like, how am I feeling? What is that all about? And And I always, I've been quoted as saying this a few times now. It's like, I think attention is magic. It's the most incredible magic trick that we have as human beings, because attention has a way of just revealing everything. When you truly give something your attention with no expectations, with no, preconceived notions of what's going on, but just truly giving something your attention, and all of this stuff just suddenly starts appearing.
Yeah.
And you go, holy shit. That's part of why I love doing this podcast, is we just give our attention to some subject or topic, and I always end up walking away with something I didn't understand before, or understanding something a little bit more. And I'm like, how did that even happen? It's like it baffles me at times, right? It's simply through our attention. So sometimes that can reveal different things. For myself, it revealed that it's like, hey, you still love the things that you're doing. It's just the way that you're thinking about it and you're looking at it that you need to adjust. Whereas, perhaps for your own circumstance, maybe that it is that too, but maybe it's also, hey, go and explore some other areas. Maybe that's the thing to do.
Yeah. And not try to be anybody or get anywhere doing it.
Yes.
I think that's the key thing for me right now is doing this stuff for fun. I think that, you brought up something earlier, which was about how we're cultured in the West a lot to think about like hustle culture and constantly get somewhere and do something. And
yeah.
I feel like I get caught in this all the time because there's this tremendous amount of pressure to be like a goal setter and to get somewhere and to achieve things. And I have some goals that I've been setting, and I've been knocking a few off recently, some big ones, and it's been nice. But I think part of the problem is you get too goal focused. You start to miss out on certain things that is another quality of life that isn't talked about enough, which is like your creative expression and your general like passion, like it's one thing to be passionate about goals and getting something, and there is this elation about achieving it and all of that. But there's something about just the fact that you enjoy working towards something or building something or just doing something, like the actual thing is fun. And I'm not talking like watching TV or like playing a video game. It's like the actual like creating of it, which is the fun thing or whatever it might be that you do. There's leisure, and I'm not talking about leisure. I'm talking about when you actually are putting effort and energy into something, but you enjoy it. And it doesn't even have to be anything. You actually enjoy doing it. For some people it's drawing, for some people it's just making the music or whatever it is they're doing. But it's this expression. And I feel like hustle culture is one of those things that sometimes it kind of like mutes all that, because you're trying to do something to get somewhere, to achieve something, to be somebody, or whatever way you do it. But it's all meant for something more than what it is. And that's where the problem seems to lie. And it stops curiosity. I mean, I think that's what I'm noticing just for myself at this point, is it stops me from being curious.
Yeah.
Because if it has to get me somewhere, there's no time to just do it.
Yeah. And it also, like, as one of the things I was realizing too, is that it really makes everything feel like work. As opposed to like, it's like, well, hang on a second. Like, if I'm not trying to put anything on it, it becomes more like play.
Yeah.
And really like with goals, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with goals, but again, I think there's something with the way that we set goals for ourselves, the way that we look at goal setting. I mean, there's the whole can of worms of like a lot of goals that we set are out of shoulds and ought tos.
Yes.
Right. Which is not the way to do it, because really goals are about like, look how, we have this life, we have this one life that we know of at this moment.
Yeah.
And it's how do we want to spend that? How do we want to play our lives out? And the goal is really, it's about what do we want to create? What do you want to create for yourself? And that has nothing to do with what you get in many respects of it, because in many ways it's the setting of the goal is its own immediate reward, right? It's like, okay, I'm setting about creating this. And it sets out a whole path, a whole journey of something that you want, right? Not just something that's at the end of it, because there's never an end of it. You know, it's like, yeah, sure, you might reach this one point, but then there's just going to be another thing and another thing. So clearly, that's not the point. Clearly, that's not the point, because there's never a time when we say, yep, I'm finished. There's never that. Not until the day that we die. There's never going to be a point where we say, I'm finished.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there will always be something. So the whole setting goals as a way to get something at the end of it is a self-defeating path to take. In many ways.
To make a goal to be somewhere other than where you are.
Yes.
You know, there's
that's exactly it. It's to be somewhere else than where you are, as opposed to, no, I'm setting this goal because the path is the goal ultimately, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I use this one all the time, but it's like, it's a mountain climber, you know, they pick a peak, right? But it's not just so that they can stand at the peak. It's because they love to climb.
Yeah.
They love to climb. They love the feeling of it. They love the exhilaration, all of the experiences that come with it. The challenge of that, even. They're taking it on willingly and saying, like, yeah, I'm going to go up against this mountain. But it's not just to stand at that peak. You know, if you just want to stand at the peak of a mountain, you can take a helicopter.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
but it's
some of these peaks you can't. But
some of them you can't.
But if you could, you know, you wouldn't. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be the same.
And it's not to say that there's not this incredible sense of, I did it. You know, when you get to the top, of course there is. Of course there is. But that's not ultimately what the point is. You know, those climbers are going to go on to continue to climb.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just, again, it's not over. But we don't look at that, especially in a Western culture. We don't set our goals that way. We don't set our goals in the sense of, like, what's the journey I want to take? You know, what's the thing that I want to give? It's almost always about what's the thing that I want to get at the end of the road.
Sure. Yeah. And it's the focus on the thing that takes you out of the moment. That's the problem. I mean,
yeah.
You know, one of the things that I'm dealing with right now in my class, in the class that I coach weekly, is we've just been talking a lot about like how, you know, people are going through pain. People go through pain and then they achieve their thing, and then there's this elation, whatever. But pain, you know, we've just been working through this whole thing. And the important thing to remember is that, for example, one of my clients, his back hurts. He just did his back in real bad.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been going through a bit of a back sciatic pain, but it's kind of seems like it's done now. I seem free and clear. And I can say personally that I have never appreciated my health more than what I do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this particular client, he's going through this back issue, and he's been struggling to write. He's been struggling to create, but he says, you know, week after week, this is all he wants to do. He wants to write. He wants to tell stories. And then his back went out, and he's been writing more than ever now that his back went out. It's interesting because before he was free and clear of back pain, and now he's in total back pain, but he's writing more.
Yeah.
And I said on the call, the last time we had a call, I said, you know, there's somebody out there right now that's like a paraplegic or whatever, and they would just love to have back pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the thing is that you could be in a terrible situation, you know? Something's hurting, something's not good in your life. But there's someone out there that doesn't even get that, you know? And even when you're in the most terrible of moments, you can kind of go like, if your foot hurts, you can go like, at least I have a leg to stand on, to have a foot that would fucking hurt. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? There's a certain amount of appreciation and gratitude that comes with the fact that you can appreciate and be in the moment that you're in and not need to make it be different. And I think a lot of what we're talking about is like, like, oh, like life will be good when I feel good. Life will be good when I'm healthy. Life will be good when I have money. Well, right now, if you can't appreciate this, don't even fool yourself, because you're going to get to that moment. It's not going to make it much of a difference at all.
Yeah.
You know, it might temporarily improve your situation. You might feel good for a little bit, but I'm telling you, it's going to go away, because right now is your moment. Right now is the moment. You remember that little I'm Batman and Robin thing I had? Well, I had an epiphany that weekend, which was like, this is my moment. This right now is my moment. This is the only moment that matters, and this is fucking it.
Yeah.
And if this isn't everything that I ever hoped and dreamed for right now, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And basically, just to give the audience a little idea, I was looking at a deck of cards. We were about to play a game, and I was sitting there, and I just had this epiphany. I was like, this is my moment. Like these are my cards. This is my life. This is everything that I get to be right now. And I just realized, like, every moment that I have right now is my moment. It's my moment to enjoy. And, you know, it's funny because you have these epiphanies and you have these wild kind of discoveries, but then you forget them because you get back into hustle culture. You get back into, like, your demands and your obligations and who you think you need to be. But then we have a talk like this, and it reminds you, it's like, oh, yeah, let's just stop for a second. Let's just be right here. And what do you want to do? How do you want to express this? You know? And yeah, like, work towards something, of course, but you got this right now.
Yeah.
And you got to be in love with this. And if you're not in love with this right now, then that should be like a warning sign. That should be like when you have a health scare. That should be the same thing. You should be like, okay, something's wrong. I'm not enjoying the moment. Like, instead of distracting myself, instead of trying to get away from it and trying to be somewhere else, what is it going to take for me to recognize that this is fucking incredible? And then if this is incredible, you can do anything, right? But easier said than done, but I feel like that's why we're having this talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And if people are hearing like a little noise in the background, it's because we got a couple of little kittens running around making trouble and getting into things out there. Just
Couple kitties are just
in
playing
case
around.
anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
Masters of the moment.
Yeah.
Those kitties are. But yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, I would say that, you know, most of us, myself included in this, I'm not saying I'm free and clear of this at all, but most of us are, we live in ideas. You know, we're living in ideas of things going on as opposed to what is actually happening, instead of living in the actual moment of and the present. You know, it's like we're living in, you know, ideas of what might happen tomorrow or next month or whatever it is, or we're living in ideas of, you know, what just happened, you know, a little while ago, or with this person, with that person, and suddenly we find ourselves just like, you know, we're like, oh shit, where the hell was I just a moment ago? You know, sometimes, you know, life has a way of just like confronting us with something immediately, and we're just struck by something that is, you know, really beautiful. A lot of times beauty is something that can just suddenly just like take us right into the present moment, but also, you know, something really horrifying can do that too. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing, I think I've gotten a little off of what's going on here. But anyhow,
present.
Being present, but
being present comes with not trying to be anybody, not trying to be anything, not trying to make anything. Being present is letting this be whatever it is, because this is it. You know, you are in this moment. You found yourself in this moment. And another thing we talk a lot about in the course that I teach, I'm not trying to pump the course. It's just relevant because it's something I'm realizing comes up for a lot of people. But one of my clients was talking about, you know, she just got a new car. She's got a bunch of success in her acting career. And she said, I feel like whenever something good happens to me, something bad happens to my family, you know? And she's got this, and I said, well, that's a pattern. You know, you see yourself doing something good, and then immediately you've taught yourself to look for something bad. those two things don't exist in correlation.
Yeah.
Someone's not getting sick or getting hurt or their life isn't getting messed up because yours is getting better. It's not working that way. But here's how it works for you. You succeed and immediately you have this pattern like there present for you, and you immediately look for how something bad is probably going to happen, and you'll find it because you're looking for it. And just like you said, it's what you put your attention on, you will find. We had a talk about this. I actually was just re-listening to it. Seek and you shall find. Whatever you look for, you will find. But my point here is that, for one, you will find whatever you look for. So in this moment, if there's anything wrong, you're looking for it and you're finding it. And it's really that simple. And I know you don't want to hear that. And I know that you should almost pinch yourself and wake yourself up, because every time you have a bad moment and you're like, I don't like this, pinch yourself and wake yourself up, because you're finding it, you're looking for it, and you're gonna get it. Like, you're the master of your own domain. You're gonna create whatever experience you want. The other thing is that getting what you want, like having all of that come together, it is you. Like, you are it. There is no thing outside of you that's going to help you do that. Like, you are it. It is inside of you. Like, everything outside of you is an expression of your internal world. When something is wrong on the outside, what that's telling you is that something on the inside is not in line with how you feel the world should be. That's all the external world really does.
Right.
But it sounds, this sounds fucking nuts. But the external world is exactly a representation of what's in your internal world. And this is how I know this. I'm going to just prove this forever. Okay? If you have a problem with the outside world, that problem you have is inside of you. So you somehow found yourself in that problem because in your internal world, you created it. Now, you probably wouldn't recognize you had the internal problem unless you had an external manifestation to recognize you had an internal problem. Otherwise, you wouldn't acknowledge the internal problem.
Right.
And here's the thing I always say to my class. Nothing comes from nowhere, and everything comes from somewhere. These things don't just happen. This is worked for. It's developed. It's through time and effort and energy. Things come together to get to that point where this happens. Right now I'm paying off some debt from my past self as I look at it. But that debt didn't come from nowhere. That debt came from who I was and where I was at. Yeah. I didn't just find myself here. I got myself here. And that took, you could say years, you could say decades of time to get to this point, to get myself to that ability, to have debt to even pay off. Like, I had to work to get there in a weird way. That sounds funny. But what I'm saying is that what I like about this talk is, like, if you're going to just let this moment be this moment, you're in this moment, but your past and everything that kind of accumulated, you're in it, and now you get to deal with it. It's like reap what you sow. Maybe you're overweight. Okay, you're overweight. So what? You're overweight. That just didn't happen overnight. You didn't just wake up and you're overweight. You ate a lot of cupcakes or whatever you did. You did what you did. You came from an obese family. I don't know your story, but maybe it's not your fault. You say, it's not my fault. Who gives a shit? You are where you are. It is what it is. Look, I didn't have a perfect family. I didn't have perfect. Nobody did. But and even if nobody does. But you are where you are. So make this moment incredible and then do something with it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to make it different. But if you don't like the way it is, then if you just let your internal, like, values and your internal moral compass, your internal guide, it will put you on the right path. A lot of your goals are innate. They're natural. They're not things that are going to come out of nowhere. And here's the last thing. I'm going to wrap this all around. I was referring to my client. She said, every time something good happens to me, something bad happens to someone in my family.
Oh, right, right.
Well, that thing that happened in your family didn't happen because something good happened to you. That happened because nothing comes from nowhere and everything comes from somewhere. That person put themselves into that spot to get to that moment, and it just so timely happens that you put yourself in that way to get to this moment, and yours happened to be good and theirs happened to be not so good in your perspective. And
Yeah.
now you're trying to make some relationship between them that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and also there's a whole bunch of like, taking on, I mean, with family it's
Sure.
hard, but you're taking on, something else is going on, as opposed to just respecting and recognizing that, your family members are just other people who are on their journey as well.
Yes.
To go back into all the stuff that you just went through, it's like, yeah, they're on their journey of, discovery and attention and figuring things out and learning, right? And to take that on, it's like, oh, the like every time something good happens to someone, like it's that's not really the case of what's happening. But even if that seems to be something that's going on, which you're most certainly not the cause of, it's something that you as a person, you don't have to let that destroy what's happening for you. Like you don't have to let that go down. I want to just like reshift the focus here for
Sure.
a second, because something you were saying, like, it's interesting because for myself, this sort of, not necessarily discovery, for me it was almost like a reminder, because this isn't the first time that this has come up, and I realized like, oh shit, I need to really make sure I'm paying more attention to this this sort of pattern within myself of this need to be something and be someone. But it's interesting because I teach in my classes, like with actors and sometimes with non-actors, because a lot of what I do has broader implications to it. But a huge part of why I love doing what I do is because I feel like I'm teaching people to just let themselves be. It's a huge part of what I teach. It was like, oh, okay, all right. I get a little bit of humility. It's like I got my own work to do still. But it really is, because I'm teaching people to just like, hey, look, leave yourself alone. Leave yourself alone and just be right here, right now, and let's see what happens. When you let yourself do that, when you stop putting all these pressures on yourself that I have to do this right. I have to be interesting. People have to like me. People have to be entertained. All of this and more is going on in the method and the approach that I teach, and it is in such a way that it makes people confront it. Like it has a way of like suddenly we have to confront all of that shit that's going on, because it gets in the way of being in the moment with another person, of really being with that person. And there's no way of escaping it, which is really cool. If anyone, not to be mysterious, I teach what's called the Meisner technique in the acting world. It's really freaking cool. Anyhow, it was so bizarre that I'm like, oh, here I am trying to be something, and like here, and I'm teaching my people. It's like, hey, like stop trying to be something else and just be who you are.
Yeah.
Because as we start to discover in the process is that it's like who you are is what we want, is actually interesting. When people's bullshit all drops away and it's just like, no, just be and just do what's in front of you. Mm-hmm. Right? And then suddenly there's like this incredible life that's going on. We see these people and it's fascinating, but it only comes from letting it all go, from from no longer needing to be interesting, no longer needing to be more than what you are.
It's
right?
It's the eternal struggle, that people people are going through. Everybody's going through it to some degree. Some have figured out maybe more peace with it, but it's self-acceptance and self-love.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it comes to art and it comes to entertainment, it's not about being liked. It's about providing a service. It's about doing a job. And if your goal as an actor, and this is from a producer director point of view, if your goal as an actor is about being liked, you're missing it. A lot of you are missing it, because sometimes your job is not to be liked. Sometimes your job is to be hated. Sometimes your job is to be despised. Sometimes your job is simply to do something and bring something that nobody expects, and it might be ugly. But man, if we capture that on camera, man, if somebody sees that in the audience in the moment, that's going to be incredible. But if you don't allow that, then we don't get it. And you live a little bit of life, you're going to find out it's not all rosebuds. Sometimes it's thorns. And sometimes you got to be the thorn. And sometimes you got to be the thorn for yourself. It's like, and I think that, actually, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing more and more, it's like this need to be liked, this need to be loved, this need to be accepted is such a bastard of a thing that we let get in the way. So much of my early years in,
I think for a lot of people in the early years, especially as teenagers, we're all trying to learn how to be accepted.
Teenagers is big time acceptance, right? Be liked, be accepted. I think for me, I remember I was actually working with Ted. Ted was our acting teacher.
Oh yeah.
And we were doing some acting and whatever, and Ted was, I'm pretty sure it was Ted. Ted was like, we were doing something with acting and was going for something. He was like, well, right. And then you'll be loved. And it was just like the bomb dropped, because I was like, that's what I've been doing.
I could just picture Ted doing that too, just like sitting there in his chair, just kind of looking, and he's like, right, and then you'll be loved, like just like very softly and gently, but it goes off. It goes off like a fucking atom bomb inside yourself.
Totally.
He's a great teacher.
Great teacher. He's amazing. And I realized, man, so much of what I do is I'm just trying to be loved. And once I had that awareness and once I had that acceptance, and I was realizing that like so much of what I'm doing is just really to be loved, because I'm not trying to get sympathy or whatever. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. It's the only reason why I'm sharing it is that a lot of us feel unloved. A lot of us don't feel lovable. And maybe we don't call it that. Maybe we don't know it's that. Maybe you call it not good enough. Maybe you think whatever. But it's this like, well, if I get this, then I'll be loved, essentially, right? And if you don't need that anymore, if that isn't your sole focus, if you're not trying to do something to get the love, if you're just doing it because you love it, that's a different thing. And
interestingly enough, people will love you for it.
Yeah.
Some people will hate you for it.
Some people
that's just the way it goes, but that's not your business.
That's not your business.
It's not your business at all.
That's a good way to put it.
And in many ways also, the people who love you for it, it's not your business either. Mm-hmm. In a weird way, because that's like one of these little double-edged swords. Like, it's great to get praised and showered on, but there's a real danger in that too, because the next time you go to do something, suddenly you're trying to just do something that you did before.
Yeah, there's a saying. It's something like, if you live by their applause, you'll die by their insult or whatever it is. I don't know the word,
but that captures it well enough.
Those lines,
something that I'm really understanding out of this conversation now too, is that in the whole game of being someone, being something, is that is an absolute killer, destroyer of innovation and of actual creation. Because when you're playing that game of trying to be someone and be something, you are completely locked in what has already been done and what we already know. There's no innovation that can possibly occur in that space, because when you're in that space, you're constantly playing it safe. Because you can't, you're just trying to look at something. It's like, well, what is something that someone else has already done, right? And it's, it really is this. It's not easy. It's a tough thing. It can be a scary thing to do, because we want, especially in the world that we've kind of built for ourselves, it's like people are like, I want results. It's like there's all of these companies and there's, one of my favorite sort of people out there doing great things in the world, in my opinion, is Simon Sinek. And he goes into different companies and businesses and stuff like that. Same thing with Brene Brown. She does some of this stuff too. But she goes into these companies that say, it's like, yeah, no, like we want, our employees to be more creative and to be more innovative and all of this stuff. But then they're given these demands for these results and, these payoffs out of it. And she's like, well, you can't have both of them. Mm-hmm. You can't have that security. You can't have that assurance and have innovation at the same time. That's not how it works. Innovation thrives in a place of uncertainties. That's the only place it works. And some things are not going to come to fruit. But some things will pay out. And when they do, it will be something that is actually something the world hasn't seen before, that actually hasn't been done before. Yeah. But that's the only ground with which that occurs. It can't happen in that space of, well, we've got to, it's like it has to do this, right? It has to have this effect. It has to have this result, whatever. Innovation is never going to occur in that space.
Yeah. You have to give yourself, I think, a certain amount of freedom to explore and to fail and to do things that aren't going to work, so that you can find out maybe a path that might work. And what I mean by that is, there are stories or there are ideas that you have or things that matter to you that might not matter to anybody. But because they matter to you, they might matter to everybody. And it's one of those things where you need to be willing to go down a road that might not seem to matter to anybody, only because it matters to you. Because maybe you'll go down that road and discover something that actually matters to everybody that nobody has realized yet. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you can't uncover something that somebody's already uncovered. They've already uncovered it. It's not new. Like, when you uncover it and you figure it out, then everybody will copy and try to exploit that thing that you uncovered. But, if you're...
some people for sure will.
Yeah, and that's part of the world, right? That's part of how things work. But if you want to be like a creative genius, if you want to be somebody that's going to do something new, that's going to do something memorable, something important, something that stands out, pioneering... you're going to have to be willing to go and venture into yourself without the need to be anything other than what you are. Like, and you don't even know what that is. And that's like taking a path that no one's ever walked before. But for some reason, you're not just taking any path. It's not like the path doesn't exist. Yeah. The path exists for you, but no one else sees it. It's like if you were walking through a forest.
If you're lucky, someone else might see it.
Yeah.
As I say that nobody, because some people do. Some people have that gift, and they can see where someone's going, and they can offer it. But it's that's I would say that's rare. That's a rare thing to find. Mm-hmm. But
to be like somewhat visionary.
Yeah, but I mean, it starts with you knowing that first. It starts with you walking that path first and daring to do that someone else can see it. It doesn't start with you, hunkering back and hoping for somebody to come along and just like, no, you can, no one else is going to show your path for you.
No.
You know, like that's never going to happen. You might have supporters once you've decided to walk it,
Yeah.
you know. But again, it also will usually come with its naysayers as well.
And you might not even know you're walking it, you know?
Yeah.
You might just be thinking you're just doing your life, just doing you. And then all of a sudden you realize some people are paying attention. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, I am somewhere. I've gotten something. But watch out then, because then your ego might come right back at you.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where it's still important to just like, hey, just
you've
be
never
nothing.
made it.
Be nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because that's the only, like for me, I've discovered, like, I'm like, wow, that's freedom. For me, I'm working on it, but I can still see, you know, in the distance, I'm like, you know, if I can continue to just, in some ways, to just recondition myself, you know, out of this pattern that I've been in, and to really just learn how to act for its own sake, and not for it having to come out of a place of having to be someone and be something, but that's freedom. Mm-hmm. That's real, true freedom in life. You know, that's when you can actually, this is where like the sort of real authenticity comes out of this, right? Because, you know, the title of this is Be Nothing and Do Something, right? And that's, I think, the beauty of this is like when you can let go of your bullshit, when you can let go of your ego and just go into a place, enter into that space of hey, I don't have to be anything. That's the most incredible spot to actually do something, you know, to actually create something, because then you're not limited. Then you are actually free to do whatever it is that you have to do. Mm-hmm. You know, because your attention is only on that, on only what is required of this thing that you've set out to do. And there's no voice in your head of being like, oh, are people gonna like this, or is this gonna, you know, there's none of these questions constantly just nagging and biting at you. Mm-hmm. It's just attention and focus and flow that comes from that space.
I'll say something that I feel is something relevant to all this, which is that the world, every person is projecting all the time. They're always projecting onto everything themselves in some way and trying to work the world through themselves. So if you don't feel liked or accepted by people, a lot of the time what's happening is it's because the way that you project is you're trying to put yourself in the position of someone else to look at you, but they're not looking at you from your perspective. So the first thing to understand, and this might be a complicated concept, but everybody is really just a mirror. So when you see someone not liking you, not loving you, not whatever, it really has nothing to do with that. That's what's happening is you're mirroring back that you don't like yourself, that you don't love yourself, or you're not in a place of loving yourself. It's not that you don't, whatever, like that's irrelevant, but your experience of yourself is not love. Your experience of yourself is not like or acceptance. So if you stop trying to make the world different, if you stop trying to make everyone else change, and you recognize that what's inside of you is just getting reflected back at you, then you can start to go, oh, it's inside of me. Like I'm creating this whole thing. The other thing is that if the whole world is just a mirror, then really, like, if you look out in the world and you don't like what you see, what's happening is you're just mirroring something inside of yourself that you don't like. It's really that simple. Mm-hmm. And this is like, it's devastating at first. Because if you hate your life, it's devastating. Because basically what's happened now is you look at your life and you go, well, shit. Like, I'm the one responsible for all this stuff. I hate life. I'm angry at everybody. It's like, it's all inside of me. Like, it has nothing to do with any of them. Mm-hmm. If you were bold enough, courageous enough to take that step, it would be like a punch in the nose. It's going to be like, fucking, it's going to rock you. Okay. But if you can shake that one off and go, okay, fine, I have that. You could turn your entire life around on a fucking dime. Like, I can tell you this, and I've had my humility moments where, you know, now here's the other issue. What you mirror, you will create. So you will seek and find. So here's the thing. If you look for things like, I don't know, like disloyalty. Let's just take that, for example. That's one I did. You will find that everywhere. You'll find all the most disloyal people in the world, and you will actually bring them into your life because they best reflect and align your internal world. And so in a weird way, you call upon the very people that you despise, or the very people you wouldn't want, because you haven't worked through that issue.
Yeah.
So, you know, this isn't easy. This is humility work. But the thing is I think the reason why people have a problem accepting where they are and just being is because they don't like what they're reflecting out, and they don't like the internal world that they've accepted for themselves. And I think part of like being with yourself is about having some humility and some honesty, because really, like, you don't have, like, here's the exciting news. This is it. This is the exciting news. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything. You can literally stay where you are, sit, you can meditate, you can journal on it, you can figure this out from within yourself, and you can literally right the wrongs you've allowed into your life. And by the way, these wrongs, these things that are in your life, these things that you've seeked and found, may not even be yours. It's not your fault. It is what it is. Doesn't matter how old you are. You can change your entire life in a moment if you're willing to have the humility to sit with yourself and be in it and say, fuck this shit. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of attracting this type of person to my life, or this type of situation, or this type of whatever. I'm going to evolve this. Now, what is the problem? Why do I look for this? What do I get out of it? You know, take my one client, for example. Every time something good happens for me, something bad happens over there. What a great excuse not to do anything good for yourself. Cut that shit out. Just cut it with a fucking knife, like cancer. That's a bad fucking thing in your life, and you can just get rid of it. But do you have the courage, the boldness, the audacity to say, I don't want it? Or are you going to be victim? Are you going to sit in it and say, this is my life, I'm stuck, blah, blah. Like, it's up to you. Like, you know, like, look, nobody's going to do it for you. But if you are willing, I guarantee people will pop out of the woodwork and they'll say, okay, good, I'll help you. I will help, because you will mirror it back. Because I guarantee you, if you're hearing this, if this, what I'm saying, and this is a call to action, man. This is a fucking call right now. Because I'm saying, if you're hearing this, I guarantee other people are hearing it. And they're looking for you. So go find each other and go fucking change your lives. And that's not about hustling. That's not about goals. That's not about getting anywhere. That's about you being with you and saying, I'm fucking alive and I'm going to do this life. That's it. And then all the goals and all the other shit will come along. But if you're working against yourself, man, or woman, whoever you're out there listening and hearing this, and this is fucking boiling your skin right now because you know it's true, I'm here for you. There's people out here who are here for you. So you got to sit with yourself and you got to do the work. And the work is you sitting with yourself, number one. And then you'll work through it and shit will come up. And you'll work through it and shit will come up. And you'll get a slap in the face out of humility and shit will come up and you'll work through it. And this is what you'll do for the next little bit. But pretty soon you're going to be you. You're going to be with you.
Yeah.
There's one quote. I'm going to finish with this. You had purpose long before anyone else had an opinion. I can't remember who said that. I think it was Maya Angelou or somebody like that. But you had purpose long before anyone else had an opinion. I love that quote. I wish I remembered who said it. Maybe I can refer to it later. But someone else said it, and I really like it. And I think it's a really good point, because I really do think that you have some stuff inside of you that is just being weighed down by other people's opinions, ideas, and the maybe the family or society or culture you were born into. And it's up to you, man. You gotta reset it. You gotta restart, or you just decide you're stuck with it. And you know what? that's your choice.
Yeah. And it comes down to a real face to face, a real sort of confrontation with who you really are.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it all begins. You know, who you are, how you really feel, real honesty.
Yeah.
With,
and who you are is not anything. It's undiscovered. That's the beauty of it. It's not something you're not going to label it. What you're going to realize if you ever get to that is you're going to realize, like, I'm this blank slate. I'm this open canvas of life. And, you know, I'm not stuck and bound to whatever I thought I was bound to.
Yeah.
And that's going to be daunting and scary because you're going to have nothing to cling to anymore.
Definitely can be. For
well,
sure.
It might be.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't be. Maybe
it
lovely.
won't be. Yeah.
Maybe it'll be wonderful.
You can never be sure. It's like
I guess I'm only relaying my own experience.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Sometimes. Yeah. It can be. You can come against. It's like, oh my god.
I'll tell you,
it
for
just
me,
takes
it
your
was
whole world apart.
I'll
You
tell
know.
you, for me, it was a shocker. But you know, and I'm not saying I have it all together or figured it all out, but I can tell you that I hit the reset button because things turned. You know.
And then there's like you find yourselves. You know, because sometimes it's hard to measure. You know, how far you've come.
It is.
You know, but every now and then there's these little glimpses, these moments. You're just like, oh, you know, where suddenly you're confronted with something and you go, you know, I remember when something like this would have just sent me into just a dark and terrible space. And now I'm calm. You know, now I'm calm and I'm clear about the situation now. That's incredible. You know, those little pieces are those things that tell you, it's just like, oh wow, I'm not the person that I used to be, you know, and for the better, because I'm a more peaceful person than I was before.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Also, I'll say one other thing. Don't worry if it gets uglier or more painful before, like, that's part of the process. Sometimes things get uglier or more painful before they get better.
Yeah.
You know, for me, when things start getting really painful or they start getting really ugly, I have in my mind, I simply decide, okay, well, they must be getting better. There must be something, like, if it's not something that's like I mean, there's certain things where you're like, oh, this is getting worse, I should go to the doctor, or this is whatever, something like that, you know, where it's like you should get yourself checked out or whatever, or you should talk to somebody. I mean, there's certain things where, you know, for example, when you're resetting your life, you might find yourself feeling really lonely because a lot of the people in your life don't align with who you want to be anymore. And maybe you're hanging out with a lot of drug addicts or people that were abusing things or abusing you or poor behavior, or they were thieves, whatever. There's a lot of guys I work with at my work, a lot of these temps that come in. And these guys have had, you know, a lot of them had drug addictions and they've been recovering. One of the biggest things they'll say, and I've heard this before, but they'll say, you know, I don't hang out with the same people I used to hang out with. And that's hard for them, right? Because, you know, they don't have the same social circle. They feel more alone. But I see a lot of these guys and they're really doing work to, like, correct their lives. And there's a reason why they're a temporary worker, right? Because somewhere along the line, they kind of, like, fucked up. And now they're trying to reestablish themselves.
Yeah.
But good on them for figuring it out. But part of that can be a painful, humbling experience where it's like, I feel really alone and I'm doing this, I don't have a regular job, or I'm working for this agency that's, you know, and when you're a temp, you don't necessarily get, at least at our job, we try to treat everybody well, but, you know, I'm sure they go to a lot of job sites, they just get walked on and spat on, basically, looked down upon. And all I can say is that when you're going through a transition in your life, sometimes there can be things that are more uncomfortable and painful, but that can be that's part of the healing process. Sometimes, you know, like loneliness, for example, might be a part of the process of revamping your social circle. So if you're trying to avoid loneliness and change your social circle, you can't do both, you know, like, you know, I'm not going to say that you're going to feel lonely, but you might feel alone in doing that. It's funny how this talk goes, but basically what I'm saying is that, you know, you're going to, all I'm saying is this: if you're being truly authentic to who you are, that's going to take you on a journey, and sometimes those journeys are going to bring you through lows. Just keep being with yourself. Don't try and be anything else. Like, if you're in a low, try and look at that and go, okay, great, I'm in a low for a reason. I chose to be here. I want to be here. It's not like I'm doing this, you don't always get to choose everything being peaceful and rosy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be a little painful. It'll be temporary. This too shall pass, as we often say.
Yep.
And you'll be through it. So there you go.
All right, man.
All right, well, let's talk about this beer
And wrap this up.
Sure.
Yeah. You picked this one out.
I did. I like the name of this. So this is How Sound Brewing Super Jupiter Mango ISA. Super
good.
Jupiter.
I really enjoyed this.
It is good.
This one.
Yeah.
It's like it actually goes pretty well even in the cold season here, but I can really this is something that would be really nice to just drink in like the warmer weather. I feel,
it seems like it goes both ways. It's very cloudy.
It is. Yeah, it's got a lot of texture and layer to it.
A little bit dry and a little bit thicker, I noticed as well for a beer. So I mean,
yeah, it's nice and
but
rich.
it's tasty though. It's I guess the mango makes it a little more tasty, and it's a nice, smooth, easy drinker.
Yeah, a little hoppy, but not super hoppy. It's yeah.
I mean,
it's an ISA, right? It's supposed to be easy, easy to drink. So
yeah, I really like the name Super Jupiter.
Yeah, you see that label?
Yeah, there you go.
There
It's a
you
cool
can see
label
it.
too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we always have a beer on the podcast because it spurs on the conversation, as we often say.
Yeah.
That's how these started. We would have a beer and we would talk about art, and then we decided to record it. So there you go. All right, so wrapping this up, my man.
Wrapping this up.
What are your conclusions after we put some attention on this?
Well, I mean, conclusions. I don't know if there's any conclusions that I have for this, but it's for me, it's really just given me a greater understanding, a greater sense of why this is important for me to continue on my own sort of path here of keeping myself in check, of just like, hey, am I trying to be somebody right now in this moment, in this interaction with this person, or in this, in this blog that I'm writing and all that stuff? Like, am I trying to be someone here? Right. And keeping that in check, because this conversation has really started to reveal to me on a greater level of just how much that whole notion just undermines everything that we do in our lives and our ability to just enjoy our lives, and to enjoy the things that we do. Like, it's incredible, what that needless pressure does. And also, we didn't even really get into this too much. This is more in our pre-talk, but the bizarre part of it is that sort of that need to be something makes it less likely to be so. Because it's like you said, it means that to some extent you're going to be safe. You're going to be a little bit contrived, especially when you're creating something. If you're trying to be something, it's going to come from somewhere, something that we've already seen before. There's not going to be any risk. There's not going to be anything that's maybe authentically you, what's in you that's coming out, because you're going to be working off of what somebody else has done, So in that whole process, the whole trying to be something makes it less likely to be so. So it's like, this whole thing, I'm like, it's completely illogical, but yet I don't want to speak for the world at large, but I feel like this is something I can say is a fairly general thing that a lot of us are operating on. But definitely for myself, I can say it's like, yeah, this is a deep influence that that I'm working on, right? And at the other side of it, I see that there is incredible power and freedom at the other side.
I would say that I agree. And I would also say that to second that point is that when you're trying to be something, it's a lot harder to do something.
Yes.
We never really said that, but I mean, the title
Yeah, that is
suggests
the-
it. But yeah, I mean, it really
important to
is.
say.
It's a lot harder to do whatever it is that you want to do when you're trying to be something, because you can't just let yourself do it. So, I mean, I got pretty passionate, surprisingly, on this podcast about some stuff.
You never know.
You never know. But I don't take any of it back. I really do wholeheartedly believe in all that. And I would say that you are where you are. And it's incredible and it's wonderful and it is perfect. But if you're willing to accept that, then I think that you can start doing some pretty cool stuff. I think if you keep rejecting it and you keep trying to make it different, you're going to keep finding yourself running on a hamster wheel. You're going to keep running into the same problems. And you can run that hamster wheel until you die if you want. But if you just take the one notion that is wherever you are is where it is. This is it. Wherever you are is the spot to be, man, because that's where you are. And you decide, okay, well, what I'm going to do, you're free. You can do anything you want. So I think, number one, walk away from this conversation. My conclusion would be walk away from this conversation and just decide that where you are is perfect and that it's all good, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. And you can do that. From there, you can be whoever you want to be through doing your expression. And what you'll be will be a discovery. It will be something you find out. And the other final thing that I would say is that be kind to yourself. You know, this isn't always easy. Life's hard. Life can be challenging. Life can be easy and wonderful and glorious some moments, and it can be super challenging in others. Be kind to yourself. You know, maybe you messed up somewhere, maybe you found yourself in a spot that's not so good. It's all right. It's all right. No problem. Start again. Go again. It's all good. You know, maybe you messed up, maybe you got some regrets. Let them go. Let's just do your life, okay? Like, let's just create, let's express yourself. It doesn't matter. And this is why I like video games, because I like this idea. I kind of like movies this way too, but I like video games because you get control of them. You can control your character. But just placing a character in a situation and saying, okay, go live this guy's life, or go live this girl's life, or this alien's life, or whatever. Go do this and deal with these challenges and figure it out. That's your life right now. You're in a video game, you know, you may as well be. You're starting right here. This is a start point. Game begins. Go ahead.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you got something out of this, if you feel it improved your life or your journey in any way, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share the episode.
You can also support us on Patreon, where we have tons of great bonuses. You are the ones that make the show possible and help us to thrive. Thank you for joining us.